Sorry, I just had to cut. Had a phone call from my daughter. But okay, let's back to the article. Um, yeah, we just discussed the problem with no identity system, and they discussed soulbound tokens as a way to have a semi-identity, I guess, because you cannot move it from the account and you build up a reputation, but you can still create other accounts or wallets or whatever. So it's still not symbol proof, but yeah, I acknowledge this is an interesting middle ground, so worth exploring more. But I think it's not the way if you want like a fully trustable, legitimate jury system. The ways forwards is with verifiable credentials. Um, yeah, they also discuss future research topics on this. Then they discuss the incentivizing participants. And with this payoff for not voting randomly. Yeah, I acknowledge that that's a problem with also rewarding dissenting voices. So maybe we need to quantify some way of a rationale or something like that, because what you don't want is just people voting randomly to collect a reward. So that's definitely also a real issue. But you should probably be able to quantify that and see what output a vote was based on, and then be able to penalize or discard people who have no rationale for whatever rationale they end up with. Something like that. I think it's possible to solve, and I don't think the way forward is to only incentivize those who voted yes, but also have dissenting voices. Um, and yeah, the resistance of decentralized systems depends on the interaction between the payoff and the voting system. Note that the dispute situation often require neutral decision makers to decide in several nuanced possible outcomes in non-binary decisions. And again, this is why I feel you have to have these nuanced voices. Then they discuss about appropriate managing information. Like for example, how do you make it public or non-public, the voting records of arbitration. For me again, I think that zero knowledge proof and selective disclosure is the way forward here. You do need to have some form of disclosure for transparency and also for this problem of random voting. So you should actually even disclose some form of rationale for how you voted. I believe it's the way forward, but it's very good to have this article point out all of these things you actually need to do for a working decentralized judge system to actually work. Yeah, they discuss research zero knowledge proof, so that they're also onto this. Then they talk about the language you use and the taxonomy and all of the different places where there's application for decentralized justice, like in intellectual property dispute, translation, freelancing, production traceability. Yeah, this is definitely a use case. There's already many of this. Leasing contracts, online marketplaces, crowdfunding, online gaming, real world assets, tokenization, definitely going to be interesting. For example, what happens when token moves from one blockchain to another and the underlying assets is represented by both, like what token do you burn, what do you keep, like, oh, there's so many things there. Decentralized finance compliance, social media moderation, insurance, DAO governance, yeah, prediction market, a ton of stuff. And even like basic property rights in case of non-functional legal systems, just as the case of Venezuela. So actually, and there's like I believe there's some legal history on this as well. When you have a non-functional legal system in your own country and actually using a third party for your legal system, so why not also through a decentralized legal system? That makes sense. Um, yeah, and I think also like pre-judgment, like price discovery, like jury doesn't have to be about like a dispute of a case. It could, or arbitration, or whatever. It could be actually even like to judge what's the good price on a token. And yeah, there's tons of use cases. um, I guess you wouldn't call it a jury then, but it's more of the more in the line of oracles. But the principle here discussed can definitely be used, and you can have like a pre-ruling. For example, you want to sign a contract in a smart contract in a certain way. Maybe you actually ask in through a protocol and get a jury opinion on something. Yeah, definitely it's also interesting use cases. Um, and here, like this taxonomy, where you on the one hand have this decentralized jury system as a replacement, more moderate. It could be side by side, adapting when it's the best to use the decentralized one, and when it's best to use the centralized one, the legacy system, and yeah, or have it partially merge into the traditional dispute resolution to bolster its effectiveness. And yeah, this is like determining a fair price. So pre-judgment, you don't need to be in a dispute. You can actually ask for opinion already. And again, the borderline between oracle functions and jury duty here is quite thin, but the principles are the same. Uh, Will the industry of decentralization justice follow the traditional winner takes all dynamic, often observed in digital industries with strong network effect? I hope no. Will there be different network addressing different use cases? I hope yes. Why do I say that? Like, unless we have some form of transnational agreement in a network state in the future where all blockchains agreed on everything, we need to experiment, and we need to have different systems and resolution systems to the different underlying technologies. So until we get to that point, my answer to this are no and yes. um, and I like this. They also argue about AI, like really simpler disputes. You can use machine learning and AI to actually quickly get a resolution on. If it's very complex, then you need maybe to use traditional juridical methods, and decentralized justice fits very well for something in the middle. Not that simple that the AI can only handle it, and not that complex that you really need those traditional methods. So I think this was a very elegant model to place this in, and I think they are onto something here. But I think maybe you could also argue like somewhere in here is a hybrid between these two, where you do use lend some of the decentralized justice methods into the traditional methods, as they discussed over here with like side by side systems. But yeah, I really like that. Um, and here they discuss this problem of common sense over law, what you get with this like type of systems. Um, I guess, for example, tragedy of the commons is a problem. Um, and there are some, let's say, more technical legal times where you actually need legal expertise to understand the legal problem underlying. And will someone be able to do that in just a regular common sense dispute system? But no, but maybe it's not needed for these type of contracts, and you make sure to fit these type of dispute mechanisms into things that everyone agrees to use this common sense. So yeah, I think it's workable. Um, and they here discuss arbitration, and I guess the New York Treaty was about arbitration. I think they quote it more down here. Um, and they say here, discuss if courts recognize it. I started this video with the example of Mexico. It's from this part of the page. And the basic conclusion here is no court has denied it. And I would even argue that there's a lot of historic traditions across all cultures and all different legal systems for adopting alternative resolution mechanisms and arbitration. Like, for example, in Norway, we acknowledge and accept the Sami, the the indigenous people that lived here before us, and their ways and tradition as part of arbitration rules. And they have their own arbitration council, and it's the same all over the world. There's many different arbitration systems accepted by the traditional courts. So there's a long history of this. So I'm not at all surprised by this, that there's actually adoption of this. And this is a very fertile ground for blockchain to actually then start to work on arbitration system in the blockchains to be common law. Oh, here it is. The Convention on the Recognition and Enforcement of Foreign Arbitral Awards, so arbitration. That was the New York Convention. Whoops, I clicked on the link. Shouldn't have done that. Oh, here. Um, one of the problems, like, it's not easily translatable to other languages. I will say even to a program language like the may. I mean, must can be easily translated as a boolean, but may, that's harder. And then that's why you need to have from some form of quantitative look at the data and to judge if it's correct or not. Um, and then they discuss this problem that you need to have states, and blockchains are stateless. And they even discuss that this indeterminacy of state jurisdiction may formally exclude decentralized justice mechanism. But again, I would argue with verifiable credentials, yes, it's still possible. You can actually then see what state each person was from, and you can disclose this in a zero knowledge proof, so it's not fully disclosed to everyone, and it should be possible. So it's doable. And then also that you have these objections in Article 5, grounds that the party was unable to present its case, so that the arbitration procedure does not conform to the laws of the country where the arbitration took place. So again, verifiable credentials, it's possible to solve this. In fact, with the increased adoption of the decentralized justice system, there may be a merged transnational body of norms in the form of dedicated rules, soft law documents, and perhaps even treaties that serve a similar function to the New York Convention. Yeah, I think this is one of the two paths forward. We either design for adoption to the old legacy, or there will be new transnational treaties that affects blockchain. And we already see this EU law, US law, there are legal developments on blockchain, so I think it's likely. But for now, we should also think about how to adapt to the current treaties. Um, and then they point out the difference between international arbitration and decentralized justice. So I will not say random selection, it's a weighted randomization, but there is randomness to it. But it's based on the amount of deposited tokens. So it's not fully randomized. Maximizing payouts at the center of the system, incentivize consensus as the basis for decision. And this is different, where it's resolving conflict at the center of the system. Here is the maximizing the payoffs. And again, I pointed out that's a bit problematic, because you want the and not, especially when you only incentivize whoever is right, whoever has the majority vote. That's super dangerous, because then you get all this game theory of being a jury member thinking of what all the other jury members are thinking of, instead of what you believe is the right thing. But yeah, good summary there. And here they discuss some of this critique, like you could be one of the actual jury members who have separate cryptocurrency wallets, and even be in conflict with neutrality. Um, and some of the international legal things like EBI guidelines on conflict of interest in the international arbitration state, that arbitrators may not have significant interest in the outcome of a case, that no party may waive this requirement. So you can't even say that we agreed to waive this right, it still applies. So basically, the moment you can't guarantee this, you have a problem. But hate to repeat myself, but if you have some form of verifiable credential, this is doable to solve. Um, but these are like to define a legal risk hierarchy, different use cases that can easily adapt to the decentralized justice system. Spot on. Like there are types of dispute where this is not a problem, and that can easily adapt already. And then you can make the more complex, develop with more legal treaties that's more adapted to the modern world. So I agree with this point here. And some even argue that due to all these differences in how this justice system works, it will be its own legal system, so lex cryptographia. Um, so very interesting. I'm not sure where I'll land on this myself. I think both futures are possible. It totally depends on how the traditional legal world develops. I think it's more likely that the traditional legal world will adapt to new innovations. The legal theory is usually quite slow to move, but it always moves because it always moves with the society it's part of. And the more and more the society reflects blockchain usage, the more and more over time legal theory will reflect it as well. So it's not the fastest moving thing. Like in general, laws and legal theory are slower moving than a lot of other things, but it is moving and it is going to adapt to whatever society does. So I think that's more likely. The traditional laws will adapt. There will not be like, it will not be that different that it will require its totally own legal system. But I'm not sure. That's just my hunch. Um, and yeah, here to discuss, as I told, in the end, they also discuss the non-economical benefits, such to perform a social duty. You are even entitled to certain protections when you do that. So you can vote without fearing penalization. None of this is in the current dispute mechanism of this decentralized legal system. So something to definitely try to evolve. They're also this blockchain's system can't verify the identity and integrity of human users, and this is an obstacle to the adoption of governance system based on non-economic logic. And I fully agree with that. I think yes, yes, yes. I wrote. Uh, it's so important. Like this is why I talk about like inclusiveness. This is why I talk about identity. It's so important for voting systems because um, measuring a token value only gives you the economic power or the economic expression of yourself, but measuring you and your identity is something completely different. It's something you always carry with you, and you are one human being. Um, like how can I say this in a good way? So if you roll out in Africa and only ADA will allow you to be part of a judicial system, and you don't have that much economic power to express. And I'm generalizing. There are, of course, very rich people in Africa as well, but you get my point. So you lots of you are excluded and not included and not expressing your will through the blockchain because you simply cannot afford to be. And I think this is the completely wrong path to take. It's the one where you will not grow as a blockchain. The path you should be taking is the one where you see wherever possible can you find voting system that is inclusive and that expresses more than just economic intent. That doesn't mean that it's wrong to do this for example, smart contracts that are about arbitration of economical value. Of course, then it makes sense to also have an expression of that economic value in how you arbitrate. Uh, so I'm not saying that there should, and I'm not either say that there shouldn't be incentives. There should be. It should probably be paid by those who have an interest, those who sign up to use this arbitration for their smart contracts. It could be a levy or a tax on the whole system that's then paid back. But um, I think that the way forward is also to have some form of identity system and finding different voting methods that works the best for the different things you're voting on. And yeah, this is what I started also with. Like I call it hypernorms. I call it like universal laws. I will say like some things are so valid and universal across all cultures that they apply to all humans, and authentic norms are valid within the boundaries of specific communities. And I think this is probably true also on the blockchain. There are some universal values we hold, so they're all of us, that you will not find disagreement, but there are also very many subcultures and different norms within the blockchain. So the key then is to have like a mesh system where you have these universal rules and then also these localized rules for whatever community you belong to. And this is going to be a challenge to handle in a legal system, but it's not impossible. We already do this with legal systems, in the traditional legal systems, with human rights versus state law versus even city laws. So it's totally doable. Um, yeah, and they also strike a case for the wisdom of the crowd, that there's many examples of this. They use the example of Wikipedia, where actually they are doing better than centralized experts, and it is true. There are ways to harness the wisdom of the crowd, but it needs to be done, handled with care. And if the incentive models are wrongly aligned, you get problems. So this is why I so strongly are concerned if the incentivized are only for the arbitration to vote the one that wins the case. So this for me is problematic. Um, yeah, what else? Uh, yeah, and they just also highlight that this is something that's now being many conferences across the world on blockchain legal theory and decentralized justice. And I'm even thinking like it would be cool to have some form of events like this on Cardano as well in the future. So yeah, that was my takeaways from decentralized justice state of the art, recurring criticisms, next generation research topics. If I meet some of the authors, I apologize for my strong opinions. Prove me wrong, but I really do not like how it's aligned in the incentives in this one, because I feel it's problematic that you're aligning only for rewards for what wins the case. But I do acknowledge that you don't want random voting either, so maybe this is the best we can do until we have proper DIDs and VCs and proper zero knowledge proof methods. Okay, thank you.